Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we are going to create a bouncing button using the SwiftUI Keyframe modifier. First, I'll show you how to mimic a 3D perspective with some basic shapes. Then we'll animate this button together. Let's get started. I'll start by creating a view structure for our 3D style button. We'll begin with a Z-stack. Here I'm using an ellipse instead of a circle, because we need to squish it along the vertical axis to make it look like it's viewed from a specific perspective. If you use a circle, it will always scale up and down with a fixed aspect ratio, which doesn't give the same effect. Let's create a preview for this new view so we can see what we are building. Here's our yellow ellipse. I'm also adding a stroke with a slightly darker shade of yellow using Apple's color mix modifier. I highly recommend experimenting with color mixing instead of defining custom colors, because colors created this way automatically adapt the light mode and dark mode. Finally, by adjusting the frame, we can shape the ellipse exactly the way we want. Let's copy the ellipse we just created and paste it above the first ellipse in the Z-stack. Remember that in SwiftUI, the code at the top of the stack appears visually in the back. I'll add a small offset to the ellipse in the back, so it gives our shape a sense of thickness. Then I'll change its color to the same slightly darker yellow I used for the stroke. You might notice a small empty space on the sides of the shape. I want to fix that. If you increase the offset to add more thickness, this empty space becomes even more noticeable. To improve the shape visually, I'll add a rounded rectangle between the two ellipses. I'll change its color so you can easily distinguish it. This rectangle will fill the gap on the sides. I'll give it an offset to position it exactly where it needs to be. I'm increasing the frame width by 4 because the stroke we applied draws half of its line outside the shape. And with that, our shape is ready. Before we start the animation, let's quickly set up the initial values. Since I'll animate the shape when the button is clicked, I need a state variable to act as a trigger for the animation. Next, I'll place the shape and the button inside a V-stack and use spacers to give the shape enough room to animate properly. What we need here is a Keyframe Animator. It takes an initial value, which we just set up, and a trigger. Inside, we'll work with content and value. Content refers to our shape, and value refers to the animation values we will use. Let's complete the structure of the keyframe animation first, so we can clear out the errors. We'll use a scale effect on the shape to make it grow and shrink. Then we will apply another scale effect, but only on the y-axis to squish it. Finally, we'll adjust the position of the shape using offset. We are going to need 3 different keyframe tracks for these 3 individual values, so we can modify them one by one. Let's start with the scale. The first keyframe is the LinearKeyframe. This basically means the scale value will stay at 1 for 0.3 seconds. Remember that our initial value was also 1, so for the first 0.3 seconds the shape does nothing. It's just a waiting time. That's why you can actually use any type of keyframe here instead of a linear keyframe. It really doesn't matter. For the second keyframe, I'll use a SpringKeyframe for a more natural motion. Here what I'm saying is that change the value to 1.5 for 0.6 seconds and use a bouncy spring. As you can see, the shape scales up but stays there. For the last step, I want to return back to its original scale. When you don't specify the duration, SwiftUI determines it for you. And now, as you can see, our shape scales up and down just the way we want. If you have any questions about Spring animations, Apple has a great detailed video where they explain how the bouncy, smooth and flattened Spring options work. Check out the link below. Now let's create another keyframe track to move our shape on the screen using the offset value. I'll start by simply copying and pasting the linear keyframe we used earlier to add a small weight at the beginning. You can comment out the other tracks to focus only on the changes you are making in the current track. Another useful detail to remember is that the origin of the UI axis is at the top left corner. So positive values will shift your view to the right and down. First, I'll move the shape down along the y-axis a little bit, then shift it up. Finally, the last keyframe will bring the shape back to its initial state. You can also use fractions for the duration values if you want to keep the structure consistent. As you can see, these two keyframes work together independently to create our unique animation. Lastly, I'll modify the shape so that it squishes when it hits the base and stretches when it reaches at the top, giving the animation a more intuitive, natural feel. For this, I'll use a CubicKeyframe, which creates smooth motion without the bouncy effect of a spring. The first keyframe will make our shape wait for a moment. Next, I'll squish it on the y-axis to give a hint of the movement. Then, as it starts bouncing up, I'll add a short stretch. This works nicely when combined with other keyframes. After that, I'll bring it back to its original shape for a short period of time, using 2 steps of keyframes. On the second round, the stretch will be smaller, as if the motion is losing a little energy. And finally, I'll return it completely to the original shape. Let's try it out. When combined with our other keyframe tracks, it really feels like our circle is bouncing toward us and then going back. I experimented with different combinations of values and durations to get this effect. For example, you can adjust the scale durations to change the sense of depth. That's it. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video to support us. And leave a comment below if you would like to see more videos like this.